Welcome to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we are going to be looking at BNB. We're going to be doing a higher time frame count here on the macro. So if you are more interested, we will also be doing a shorter time frame video. So make sure that you check that out as well. Okay, let's get into the price action and see what's going on. Okay, so the primary way that I'm looking at this is that within this count, what we have here from the lows is a wave 1, 2. Looking at this as another 1, 2, 3. Looking for a fourth, and then actually still looking for a fifth. So this count would actually be looking for this fourth to come back down deeper. Now this fourth would be potentially looking for this lower range here towards this $67 to this 230. So we have come into this range, but quite a regular area for a fourth wave to hit, if this is one, would actually be here towards this 0.382. So that also ties in with the idea of having this as a W and X, and actually looking for this as a Y wave to the downside. So now within this, what I'm looking for is basically to see further confirmation that we have this as a corrective move down, this is a corrective move to the upside, and then we'll continue down here towards this 1-to-1, which would actually look to bring us towards this 130. Now, we don't have to move 1-to-1. What I would like to see at least is a break of these lows here, as well as this 0.618 at this 183.9. So that would technically suffice as a Y wave if we do move down like this, but I would be ideally looking for the structure to be there if we are looking at it in that way. So now the way that we'd be looking at this is basically that once this wave to the downside completes, we'd be looking for a fifth wave up. Now this fifth wave could actually look to target out this zone of this 2073 to this 1051. Now if we did get a move up into this zone, what we'd then be looking for is basically an additional fourth wave down here and an additional fifth wave to the upside, which would look then to push towards this 4824 to this 2216. Now, if we do get a move up in this manner, what we would then be looking for is basically to see whether we get a potential drop back down here. Because if this is a bigger degree move that's completed, what that would actually imply is that we're going to see a deeper correction here, which could actually bring us back into some of these levels here, or possibly just into some of these previous fourth waves again. So we'd have to be on the lookout for that. Obviously, there's always a potential these moves can look to extend out, but I would be very careful of that fact that if we are looking to complete this in an additional fourth and a fifth like this, that this could actually be a cycle high, and we could actually see this break down in a bigger way. Okay, so if we're arguing that we are looking at this as a WXY, there's a couple of ways we can look at this. So we could look at this in a three-wave move where we're looking for potential rejection here between this 517 to this 354. So we have technically come up into this 50%. What I'm looking for is the potential that there is still a little bit more to this. So we can either look at it as a X wave that's still developing, or what we need to be aware of is there is a way of actually counting this as a triangle. Now, if this is a triangle, we'd be looking at it in this way, and what we'd be treating this move as is basically from this high point here. What we'd be looking at is this is an A, B, C. This is a D wave, and then actually looking for that confirmation of an E wave now. What we want to see is basically have a three wave move to the downside here. So I've got a couple of levels that I'm keeping an eye on. Lower down here, we do have this value area low, which is sitting towards this zone of this 259.5. So we also have this trend line by connecting this wave A to C. And what I want to see is an interaction around this level. Now, E waves can actually look to fall short or even overshoot this slightly. What we can get sometimes is we might see a quick wick past the wave C, but typically speaking, we want to keep it, this move needs to stay above this wave A, otherwise it becomes less likely. If we do move directly to the upside here, it is possible we could have a really short E wave here, but it would be, I would think it would be more likely then that we'd be on the lookout for that Y wave to still come to the downside after this point. So we're going to have to keep an eye on it, but this is what I'm looking at the moment. As long as we remain below this point here of this D wave, this 353.3, what I am looking for is a bigger three wave move to the downside, possibly coming and retesting some of these levels. Now, if this is the case, what we would then be looking for is this triangle to complete, and then we'd be looking for a five wave structure to the upside to develop from there. So that would be looking at this as a triangle and then looking for a fifth wave. Now, the other way that we can talk about this, so I want to talk about the triangle possibility. There is also the possibility within this that this could actually be a triangle in the other way, where actually what we have is this is an A wave, this is a B wave triangle, and then we actually look to break down one more time. Now, if that's the case, what we would be potentially looking for would be the possibility to get a push to the downside after this triangle completes. Now I'm going to explain the difference between these two ways of counting this triangle. So that would mean that we could actually see a 1-to-1 down towards this $87. So we need to be careful of that fact. So basically, the idea is the same, except what we're looking for here is we're actually, instead of treating this as the A wave, what we're doing is we're treating this is the A wave, B wave, C wave, looking for a D wave now. Now, actually what happens is we only get confirmation on this D wave. If we do get a move back down here, we can see here that of this range, this 260.1 is also an interesting area. We do have this this 0.618 down here towards this 244, which would also tie in with coming back, deeper into the zone. But what we could actually see here is using the speed fan, we could actually see support come in around here to this area of this 268.3. Now, what I would be on the lookout for is the potential that we could actually hit this swing low here before actually, swing fail this area before looking for this E wave back to the upside if this is the case, just to get some of that liquidity that's in this zone. Now, really, invalidation of this would come by dropping below this B wave at this 220.1 or moving above this A wave at this 397.9. So what we'd want to see with this is basically this would be a connector wave the other way around, where this is a B wave connector, which would mean we'd break down. So within this triangle, instead of just forming this 3-wave move down and then getting a bigger 5-wave move up, what we would get is a 3-wave move to the downside and then another 3-wave move to the upside and then actually breaking down. So we need to be careful of this. This is one of the things I'm looking out for here. And if we actually come back onto the daily, we're going to look at some of the other counts of the way that we could argue that we are actually still within that X wave. What we could see is something along these lines where this move is actually playing out in a W, X, and a Y. What I'm looking for is the potential of this move here basically being a W wave to the upside. This is an X wave, and then looking for this Y wave to the upside once again. Now, the Y wave 1-to-1 is actually here at this 477.5. If we do get a move up into that zone, basically this would then tie in with the idea of this being a 3-wave move. So the way this would actually happen is I'd be wanting to see this move up directly. So this would actually invalidate that triangle count. And what I'd want to see is this being an A, this being a B, and then actually seeing this move progress to the upside in a C wave here. Now, it is possible we could argue that this is W, so ABC for W, this is an X, and we see ABC. So this is something that could also play out. So if this is a W, an X, and a Y, it is possible that we could see something like this as a double zigzag, possibly bringing us up into the zone of this 398.5. So this would be an interesting zone because we would test this swing high here and possibly swing fail it. As well as that, I do have some levels that I am keeping an eye on in this zone. What I want to see is if we do get a move up into this zone here, we can see this would bring me into the target box here of this 470.2 to this 398.1. In this zone, what we have is a few areas that I'm keeping an eye on, and that would be basically these lines here. So now what these are is the yellow lines here are weekly naked points of control. The red lines are daily ones. So we can see there's a little bit of confluence over here towards this zone. There is even a monthly one in here towards this 420.8. So in this zone here of this 423.4 to this 420.3, we do have potential for that possibility of swinging fading here. Now also we do have higher up here some weekly points of control and some daily ones. Once again, we do have a high in this location, so this would be quite an interesting one to keep an eye on as well towards the zone of this 459.8. So this would be something I'm looking for. If we do move back up here a little bit higher, that could be a potential area of rejection. So I need to keep an eye on that and see how we react around those levels. Now, the other way that we can discuss this move is if we want to say that this move is basically not playing out in the way that I initially said there, what we could say is that we could look at this slightly different. So my primary account is treating the end of wave 3 over here. We could also argue that possibly wave 3 is over here. Now, if wave 3 is over here, what this means is that we can potentially then say that this could be a W, X, and a Y, and we could actually be completed. Now, it is always possible this could be a connector wave again. Like I said, same idea, looking for that rejection, and then looking for that possibility to break to the downside. So we need to be aware that it is still possible, even within this secondary count here, where the third wave is lower back here. What we could still see is this move still do something like this, where we see an additional drop down here towards this zone of this 117.4. Now, what I'm looking out for with this is the potential that obviously, if this is a fourth wave and we are starting it from further back here, what we could form is a W, an X, and a Y, and it could be more of a sideways movement. So even if we do push up a little bit higher here, I would still be looking out for that potential of a rejection on this channel and then coming back down one more time. So we need to keep an eye on that as things progress. But if we are completing over here as a fourth, what we could see is the potential to break to the upside. Now, the way that I'm currently looking at it is we would have to argue something like this. So from the initial count here, we would have to treat this as a wave 1, as a diagonal. This is a complex wave 2, and then what we'd be looking for is basically this move starting to push to the upside here for third wave towards a zone of this 588.5. Now, if this is the case, what we'd be looking for is this third wave to develop in 5 waves. Now, we can see that we do have some structure here which we could potentially look at as impulsive. Now, the way that I'm currently looking at this is there's 2 ways really. We can argue 2 things within here, and what we could say is that this move is actually developing in a diagonal over here, where we treat this as ABC for 1, this is 3, 4, and then we see another 3 wave move up here for the 5th wave. Now, if this is the case, what I wouldn't want to see is this move cross wave 2, and we'd want to see this push directly up to this wave 5 area. What we want to see is basically this 5th wave cannot be longer than 400.2. So I'd want to see this move basically find support and then look to push away. If we break this wave 2, this invalidates this count. As well as that, if we do break down past this point of this 220.2, this would invalidate the bullish count, both bullish counts altogether. So we need to be aware of that. So what we'd be looking for if this is a diagonal is basically for this move to form something like this, where this becomes all of this becomes a wave 1, we'd get a wave 2, a 3, 4, and a 5, and that could actually look to push us up towards a 759.6. Now, within this count, this would basically be saying that we still have this extra 4th and a 5th wave to come here, so this would actually look to push us up to some of those higher targets above these levels if we do get something like this playing out. Now, the other way that we could argue is that within this count we could have something like this, where actually this internal count is rather looking at something like this, where we have this as a 1-2, another 1-2 here, and then looking to progress up in a bigger 5-wave move. Once again, that potential target of this move could actually push us up as high as this zone of this 656 to this 589 area. But what we can see within this count is if we count this move as 1-2 and then looking at this as another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even if the secondary 5-wave count plays out and we do get a move up here towards this 514, it wouldn't cross the 1.618 of this 552. So this would be quite an important area I'd be looking for more, confirmation that we're in a 5-wave move. This third wave doesn't technically have to reach 1.618, but it is a common area that it does look for. So what we'd be looking for is a move up into this zone, looking for a 4th and then a continuation up for another 5th wave towards this zone of the 656. If we get that move, then we can start looking for that additional 4th and a 5th from further back here, which could actually look to move us up as high as potentially this 2.618 here for the completion of that wave 5. So I would be keeping an eye towards this zone, but really anywhere within that 5th wave target that we discussed could then mean that we are looking at that being the completion of the first 5-wave move. Then we'd get an additional 4th and a 5th. Now, we can also potentially argue that within this count, we could actually see this move being completely corrective. Now, if this is completely corrective, what we could say then is that this move to the upside is just an A, B, and a C. And once again, the same sort of idea would apply here. We'd be looking for this as a wave here instead of a wave 1. This is a B, and then basically 1, 2, 3, 4, and then looking for a 5th wave to the upside. Now, the 5th wave that I would be looking for would be pretty much in the same location. The idea is the same. We can argue that 3 is over here instead, or it is over here. So we need to see what develops here. If we fail to actually break back above this high and we continue to reject here, we could actually see a move down towards this zone of this 114.8 to this 63.3. Though we need to be aware that if we do look to break down past some of these levels, because we moved up so quickly through this zone, it is quite likely that if we do start to break down here, we could actually just move back quickly through this zone and actually retest these highs. So we'd have to see if that plays out. That would not fit into the count of this being an impulse. If this is an impulse, we do not want to lose this zone of the 66.3 as a fourth wave. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, see how it exactly plays out. But this is how I'm currently looking at these structures. Now, an interesting thing here is if we are arguing that this potentially is an A, B, and a C here, what we could see is something like this play out, where we see this develop in this channel. I'm actually going to come back onto the weekly for this. So where we see this play out as an A, a B, and then we see something like this for a fourth wave, and then we get this fifth wave, which brings us into the top of the end of this channel. So we'll be keeping an eye on this. If we do get this move to the upside here, potentially this could actually look for an interaction on this channel, and that might be able to give us a better guideline as to where this fifth wave would be playing out. Once again, as well, even if we are in the count where we have an additional wave 1 over here and we're looking for a fourth wave again, I would then be keeping an eye on the possibility of finding support again on this channel here. Though typically speaking, when it's an impulse, it will develop slightly different to a corrective move, but we can potentially still look to find support on this channel and then form that additional fifth wave up. Now, the other way that we can discuss this is that if we're looking at this as an impulse and we want to say that we have this, which is the secondary count playing out, we can argue that if we draw this channel from this wave 1 to the high of this wave 3, where we actually fall into the channel again should be our wave 4, but we are just ranging across here, so it's making this less likely. The interesting thing is that if we rather look at this move in this way, we actually have our wave 3 here. What we do is we actually push this wave 3 channel down into there, and then we're actually still sitting within this channel. We do even have a little bit more to the downside to come here, but you could argue that we actually, we're within the zone that we could have actually completed a move here and starting to move away, or alternatively, this could actually come back into the channel here and then move away. But the problem is I have with this is it would make a lot more sense for me that we actually come back down towards this box area one more time, just because if we complete here, this move here is quite large in comparison to this, particularly as a fourth wave. You would expect this to have gotten a bit bigger than the previous one. So we'll have to keep an eye on it and see how it develops. But primarily, I am still looking for that possibility of a bigger fourth wave here. Though really, as long as we maintain this 186.1, we can look for that potential to have a direct push to the upside. There's a couple of other things that I want to just discuss here. If I come back here onto the daily. So if we do look to move up here, I do have some zones which I'm keeping an eye on here. So these yellow boxes here are just areas that I'm keeping an eye on. I do have a lot of naked points of controls and things like that in there. There is also certain relationships to the move to the upside and the downside, but we can see that there is quite a few levels below us here which do have some confluence with these zones, which would be this zone of this 271 to this 256.7. Then we do have this other box here towards this 237 to this 212, and then really once we lose that, it's only lower down here towards this zone of this 140 to this 129 that we start to get some more confluence coming between some of these zones that we would typically look to challenge before we move away. And then finally towards this zone of this 94 to this 116, we do have quite a lot of confluence within here between some fib ratios. We have the 0.382 of the first half of this move, the 382 of the fourth wave. We have some daily naked points of control in here as well. So, this would tie in quite nicely with this level as a possible support zone if we do move into this zone. Now, I am looking out for the fact that if we do move up higher here and we do look to challenge some of these zones, we can see that the point of control is actually sitting here right on this 0.618, which would be an interesting area if we do look to challenge this high again, possibly swing fail this, grab this liquidity that's up here and test this point of control out. Alternatively, if this does push up to the 786, also what we have here is this value area high. So that could be quite an interesting area to keep an eye on if we do move up into this zone. As well as that, what we have is some previous ranges that we've got here. These are some value area highs which are sitting towards the zone of this 504 and this 458. And then lower down here, we do also have some value area lows, which are sitting towards this 270 to this 260 area. So I'm just keeping an eye out that, even if we have a move to the downside here, potentially we could see some support come in here, and this X wave could actually still play out to the upside. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on at the moment. Okay, so some other things I want to just discuss here is some other indicators that I'm using as just to get an idea of some things here. Now, we can see here that, so this is the Ichimoku cloud, and what we are doing is we've actually turned this cloud from the red cloud to the green cloud. So this means that we do have potential to actually find support on this cloud on our move to the upside. However, we have actually lost this conversion line and the baseline now. So what I want to see is, even if we do move down here one more time, I want to see this hold. Once we start to break down below this and start to retest it and move away to the downside, what happens is this cloud starts to flip and become a red cloud, and then this is basically telling us that there's signs of weakness in the market, and this can offer us potential resistance on the way back up. So this is on the daily. It's looking good. We're starting to get this cloud getting to build up, and what we'd want to see is this cloud continuing to get bigger and bigger below us as we look to move away. So another thing I want to talk about here is the CPR. So now if we look at this, we have, this is obviously the monthly CPR here. We can see that we are sitting currently on that R1 line. Now, if we do actually get a move to the upside, I will be cautious of the fact that if we do move back into these central lines here, what we could actually find is this could offer us resistance, and we could actually see a continuation and a sell-off. However, this is also possible we could just lose this and then start to move down towards this next CPR line, which would be here towards this 276.7. If we did move down towards this lower one, this would be quite interesting in the sense that it would actually bring us back into this channel here, and we could actually look to find support here. So we'd have to keep an eye on it, but this lower zone is sitting towards this 54.5. Now, however, if we do actually manage to break up above this and hold this zone, this could indicate that we actually might look to retest one of these other two lines, or one of these other three lines here, which is actually sitting towards this zone here of this 360.6, this 382.0, and this 412.6. So now this would be quite interesting, because this would actually bring us up into that area that, if we're looking at this as a WX and then ABC, this would be a typical zone. We could look for that 1-to-1 up here. So this could look to actually swing fail this high. It also look to challenge some of those other areas that we discussed earlier. So this could be quite an interesting zone if we do move up there. So I would be also keeping an eye on this as we do move to the upside here. Now, if we just have a look at some of these imbalance zones here, we do obviously have some up here. So we got a fair value gap that's higher up here. But what we also need to be mindful of is we do have quite a few that are still below us. So if we are looking for the potential that this move is going to do something like this as W, X, and a Y, it is possible we could actually come up here to actually fill this gap before looking to move back down, and then we would be potentially looking to come back and look for this gap here towards the zone of this 139.7 to this 159.1. Worth keeping an eye on if we do actually break down lower here into some of these zones. We also do have one sitting here between this 101 and this 89.8. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below. Also in the description, you'll find a link to the Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.